Hey, my name is Stephanie Michaels, founder and CEO of the Stephanie Michaels Software Company. In this video, we're going to talk about graphics programming and what I look for when I'm hiring and the kind of people that I hire and work with on this project. Before we talk about what I look for, I should probably tell you what my job actually is. So, what's my job? My job as the founder and CEO of this awesome software company is to make sure that the Stephanie Michaels Software Company makes software. That's it. That's my job. I invent software and then I hire people to help me make it happen. That's my job. Now, what kind of programmer do I look for? Who do I actually hire? To answer that simply, in the most blunt way, I hire men who are smarter than AI. So, part of the requirement to get a job with me is you have to demonstrate or illustrate that you don't need AI. If you come to a job interview with me and I give you a test task and your first instinct is to go to ChatGPT to solve the problem, or your first instinct is to go to any AI tool to solve the problem, if you don't even read the code and your first instinct is to just try to copy the code and paste it into ChatGPT, you do not get the job. Okay? You will not be hired. Because I've had nothing but bad experiences with people who came to apply for work with me who didn't know how to think. If you don't know how to think, you cannot call yourself an engineer. You cannot call yourself a programmer. 90% of writing code of this caliber, working on software that is this difficult, is problem solving. You have to be able to debug and solve very complicated graphics problems. And majority of the time, when it's a graphics related problem, Claude is not going to be able to help you. ChatGPT won't be able to help you unless it's a syntax error. So ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all these Grok tools, they can help you if you forgot a semicolon. It can read your code and say, hey, it's not compiling, you forgot a semicolon. Or it can read your code and it can tell you, oh, it's not compiling because you have a variable that you added in this function, which you forgot to define or you forgot to declare. You defined it, you didn't declare it. For those kinds of problems, AI can help you. But when you're talking about why am I compiling my code and I'm getting a black screen in the viewport, instead of seeing what I should see in the viewport, I'm getting a black screen and I can't see anything else. For those kinds of problems, whenever you have a black screen in the viewport and nothing else is showing, that's usually a shader problem. So you have a shader compilation issue. And when your fragment shader is messed up, or your vertex shader is messed up, or whatever shader you have is your geometry shader, your compute shader, whichever shaders you have, if something is wrong there and you've asked AI what's wrong and it can't tell you because it thinks it's perfect, but when you compile the code compiles, but you're not seeing anything in the viewport. See, those kinds of problems, I need a real developer to solve those kinds of issues. And a person who has to ask ChatGPT for every little thing, they're not going to be able to solve a problem like that. So, who do I look for? Who do I hire? Who ends up actually getting the job? I hire the 57-year-old who has been coding his whole life without AI. I look for the 60-year-old. I look for the guy who's super old, people that can work on Maya level code. I look for the kinds of people who are capable of writing software as complicated as Houdini. The people that wrote Houdini, those guys have been working on software development since the 90s, since the 80s. The people who wrote the code for Maya, they've been working on software development, they've been doing graphics programming since the 80s. The people who wrote Photoshop, the people who wrote After Effects, those are the people that I hire because they are smarter than AI. They've been writing complicated software since before I was born. So they don't need to go ask Grok or ChatGPT on how to solve some basic problem because they've been doing graphics programming before AI. That's who I look for. Now, let me clarify. So, when I say I look for people that are smarter than AI, and that's who I hire, I'm not saying that if you use AI, I will not hire you. What I'm saying is that there's a huge difference between someone who is a graphics programming expert versus someone who has to rely on AI for every little thing. So when you hire someone that's actually intelligent, they can use AI as an accelerator, okay? And those are the kinds of people that we look for. We look for the graphics programmers that don't need AI, but they use AI. If they do use AI, they use it as an accelerator, which means if AI gives them code that's bad, they are smart enough to know that this code is not good. I should not use this code. So that's what I mean by you have to be smarter than AI because AI is oftentimes wrong. And you're not going to know that the code you're getting from AI is wrong if you're overly dependent on AI. So the people who wrote softwares like Photoshop, After Effects, Autodesk Maya, Houdini, those guys, when they're like 60, 65 years old, they don't need Grok. They don't need Claude. If people like that end up using Claude, it just makes them 10 times better. You see? So that's who I look for. I look for the old guys. Most of the guys that work with me are like 10 years older than me, 20 years older than me. I'm usually always the youngest one in my company. Okay. I'm surrounded by a bunch of old guys, and it's awesome. I look for really smart guys, old enough to be my daddy. If you can be my daddy and you're smart AF and you can make the things that people today would use as a library, you're the kind of guy that can write an engine like Univah. Now, the question you might be asking is, well, if these guys are so smart, why aren't they all billionaires? Well, it's the same reason why Steve Wozniak didn't become a billionaire until he met Steve Jobs. You could also ask that. Steve Wozniak was a brilliant engineer, but his designs went nowhere. They were just sitting on his house, on his table. And because the thing about being brilliant is that you get used to yourself. To Steve Wozniak, he was just making something he liked. He really didn't even see his own work. It took a completely different outsider with a fresh perspective, with fresh eyes, to see Wozniak and to tell Wozniak that do you know that this can be a company? Do you know that the thing you're building can be a product that can launch a company? Wozniak wasn't thinking about that. He was just trying to make something cool that he could use. So a lot of times, you have the Wozniaks of computer programming, and they're in their house, writing code, making really cool stuff that will go nowhere. It's going to end up abandoned on GitHub. I've seen so many brilliant things abandoned on GitHub because they don't have a Steve Jobs. It takes a completely different skill set to become a company. And a lot of times the engineers don't have what it takes to be a CEO of a company. They're good at making things. They're good at writing code. They're good at engineering. But then Steve Jobs is great at speaking, is great at forming the company, getting the company incorporated, calling the investors, doing the meetings, doing the showcases. That's what a CEO does. So very rarely do you have someone who writes code really well, invents the product, and also knows how to be a Steve Jobs. That's why you have a lot of these guys that I hire. And though they can write incredible code under my supervision, I tell them what to do and they do it. It's not like they come to me and say, hey, I have an idea for a software. None of them ever say this to me. No one that I've ever hired came to me and said, hey, I have an idea for a software. Because they don't think like that. I am the one who thinks that way. I'm the visionary. I'm the one that says, I have an idea for a software. It's going to solve a problem that is unsolved. Everybody knows what a game engine is, and that's great if you're a gamer and want to make games. Problem is, people that want to make films don't want to learn how to code, and they don't want to have to use a very complicated blueprint system in order to just make a film. But they need a real-time solution, don't they? And there is not a software on the planet that solves that problem. There is a giant gap, and it is unfilled. And Univah is going to come in there all night long and fill that gap. And so we created this software to solve very specific problems. The render farm issue, the cloud rendering issue, the lack of a film engine issue. Filmmakers go into a game engine in order to make a film. That's a problem. So it solves multiple problems. I had this vision. I called it Univah Pro. The name Univah came from the word universal solvent. It absolves and dissolves everything else. So we are the software that absolves everything else. All other tools, we democratize everything else so that everybody comes here. It's easy to learn. It's easy to use. It's fun. And that's what the Univah Film Engine is and is becoming. So a lot of times I hire these people not to tell me what to do. I hire them because I already know what to do, but I need help. I need assistance. I can't do everything. I have to also be the person that does the meetings. I am the person that goes to the schools, and I'm the person that does the demos, the 2-hour demos, the 3-hour demos for the schools. When the schools adopt the software, I go there, I travel there, and I do the demos. I am the one who calls the schools. I am the one who emails the schools. I am the one who will bother you every day until you accept the tool. I am the one doing all of that. These programmers don't do that. They don't think that way. Engineers, they're not going to call schools. Most of them don't even like talking on the phone. They don't have people skills, a lot of them, a lot of the time. So someone charismatic who speaks well, who's patient, who understands the language, I have to go and present. I have to go to this school, go to that school, go to this school. Ask an engineer to do that, they'll be bored. They don't want to do that. They want to be behind a desk coding, solving problems. So I have to do, I am the founder and CEO. I make sure this tool doesn't die. I make sure this tool doesn't end up an abandoned project on GitHub. I make sure that this tool gets adopted by the industry, and I make sure that this becomes the industry standard. I make sure that we go to trade conventions. I make sure that we get invited to SIGGRAPH. I make sure I pitch these tools. I pitch them to whoever will listen to them. That's my job. And then, after doing all that, I come home, I sit behind a computer, and I write some code. Because at the end of the day, nobody's going to care more about your vision than the founder and CEO who created the vision, who created the company, who started this thing. So it's great to have programmers, but they can't go as long as I can go. I'm the one that it takes in order for this thing to become a reality. I have to write the code. I have to sit there. I have to check the code that other people wrote. If it's not good, we delete it.